Here's an example from your book. It says to plot these points on the coordinate plane and then decide whether segment DE is congruent to segment FG. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's plot point -3, 3. So that would be -3 would be 1, 2, 3, and then 3 up, 1, 2, 3. This is point -3, 3, and that is your point D. Okay, so let's label it. I also have point 1, 3. That would be 1 and then up 3 right here. This is point E. Another point is -2, 1. So that would be 1, 2, negative, and then 1 up. This would be point F. And the other point is -2, -3. And I have to bring this down a little bit just so that I can see -3. So -2 would be 1, 2, and then -3, 1, 2, 3, right here. And this would be point G. Now they're asking about segment DE and segment FG. So let's draw a segment DE and a segment FG. Here is segment DE, and here is segment FG. Okay, and now they want us to say, are these segments congruent? How do I know if they're congruent? The only way they're going to be congruent is if they have the same length. So let's calculate their lengths. What is the distance between D and E? Remember, I showed you can either count squares, which is the easiest thing to do, or you can subtract the x coordinates. When I'm on a horizontal segment, I can subtract the x coordinates. This would be 1, and for D, this would be 1, 2, -3. So I can subtract these, or I can count squares. So let's see. The distance between DE is equal. Remember, I can use equal here when I'm talking about numbers. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. That's one way of finding DE. Another way of finding the distance between DE is looking at the absolute value and subtracting the coordinates. So 1 minus -3, which is the same thing as 1 plus 3, which is the absolute value of 4, which is 4. So either way I get 4. Now let's look at segment FG. What is the distance between FG? Again, I can just count squares. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Another way of finding the distance between FG is looking for the absolute value of the y-coordinate. Now we use the y-coordinate in this case because it's a vertical segment. So here I have a 1 on the y for F, and for G I have a -1, 2, 3. So I would subtract 1 minus -3, absolute value, which is the same thing as 1 plus 3, absolute value, which is the same thing as the absolute value of 4, which is 4. So two ways of finding this, and you can use whichever way you want. So now I know that DE, notice that I have found the distance between DE, which is 4, and the distance between FG is also 4. So these distances are equal. That means that if the distances are equal, I can say that the segments are congruent, and that's what they were asking you to do. Are the segments congruent? Yes, they are. And that's the end of this example. I'll see you in the next video with the segment addition postulate.